What's your name? Where are you from?
Joshua Waller from, let's say, the Mount of Blessing, Israel.
And are you excited to be here at the Knesset today?
Very excited. Very excited to be here. The Christian Allies Caucus, amazing. We just see the cooperation between Christians and Israel. It's an amazing opportunity to be here.
Do you think the relationship between Christians and Jews is a very good one at the moment?
I believe so. I believe that there's always, sidelines maybe that are distracting from the main, but the main point, there's definitely a lot of good that's happening. There's a lot of Zionist understanding that's happening now. There's always a lot more to be done. I would say we're still in the minority of those that are understanding Israel and being helpful. There's a lot of Christian entities out there that are not getting it yet, but we're getting there. I would say there's a lot of education to be done, and we're excited at the direction we're going.
We're just standing right outside of the Knesset, and we're here for the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus. Is that very important?
Absolutely. Well, I just think that the work Josh Reinstein and the crew is doing is extremely important. It's just recognizing that there's a massive pro-Israel Christian community out there that needs the attention of the Knesset. And I think that lobbying that is very, very powerful, and we're very appreciative of them going in that direction.
Do you think the world needs to understand a little bit more about Israel?
Of course. There's always much room to grow in that specific vein of the world to understand the importance of Israel. I believe that if the world would just understand that, well, we would be in the Messianic era. Maybe it would be there if the world would just fully embrace Israel to be Israel, the Jewish people to be Jewish in their full identity of that. The world has to grow in understanding of its godliness, and the role of Israel in the world is vastly important to Christians.
And of course, you're doing your bit with a daily video every day. Tell us a bit about that.
Sure. At the Israel Guys, we realized that there was a lot of misinformation going on about Israel, and we do our best to challenge that, to bring a good report of Israel, to show what's actually happening. We specifically work in the region of Judea and Samaria. It's what the world calls the West Bank. No such thing as a West Bank. It's Judea and Samaria. For Christians specifically, you'll never see West Bank written in the Bible. It's the biggest con job of the Arab regime against Israel that the world just bought into. Christians bought into it. When it has everything against God and the Bible, the Jewish people, it's not the West Bank. It's not a bank in any form or fashion of the way. It's literally a mountain region. So it's Judea and Samaria, and we're in that area to rectify the wrongs, to bring a good, what is actually happening. Turn that negative, hostile media, and let's point it in the right direction of what's actually happening there.
It's part of a spiritual battle, isn't it?
Yeah, you better believe it. If you don't understand Israel through that, then you won't understand Israel at all. For Christians out there, they have to understand that there's definitely a spiritual battle at play.
I'm with Josh Reinstein, and we're here with the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus here in the Knesset. You're relaunching. Is that because of COVID?
Well, no, it's actually because we had elections, and after every elections, you have to relaunch the caucus. We've had a lot of elections recently, so we've done a lot of launches. But yeah, this is a big day for us. We're celebrating 75 years of Israel and also launching the caucus officially.
Now, we're actually here in the Knesset, which is Israel's parliament. What can Christians pray for at the moment?
Well, I think the first thing they can pray for is the peace of Jerusalem. You know, the battle for Jerusalem is ongoing, and we need our Christian friends to focus on Jerusalem, to keep Jerusalem close to their heart. And so that's what God says, is to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. But there's a lot to pray for, peace internally Israel and externally. We got a big battle coming up with Iran, who's developing nuclear weapons, and I think that's something that's at the top of our agenda.
Now, Israel's been through terrorism, demonstrations, and all kinds of things, and war. But have you seen God working through all of these situations over the last 75 years?
Absolutely. I mean, Israel is a modern miracle. It's the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. And we just saw that the ratings came out from the top insurance companies that do insurance for tourists, and Israel is the safest country in the world, and number 3 in the world if you take into consideration car accidents. So it's amazing that with all that's going on here, it's really a country of peace.
Now, you've already mentioned it, but what's the biggest threat to Israel on her 75th birthday? I imagine you say Iran. How entrenched is Iran in this area?
Well, I think Iran is by far the biggest threat. It's the only existential threat. And they have weapons in Syria, in Lebanon, in Gaza. They're surrounded us on all sides, and we can't allow them to achieve nuclear weapons. So I think that this is the top of the agenda.
Israel's just celebrated 75 years. How did you celebrate?
We had a big barbecue at my house, as always, to celebrate it. You know, Independence Day is my favorite holiday. All the other Jewish holidays are holidays that commemorate what God has done in the past. Independence Day is the only holiday that commemorates what God is doing right now. And people of faith can't miss this opportunity to get involved with biblical prophecy, and that's why we're seeing Christians around the world stand with Israel like never before.
Are you developing a good bond of relationships and friendships with Christians around the world?
Absolutely. We have 52 Israel Allies caucuses in 50 parliaments around the world, and we have 1,200 legislators in our network, and it's all because Christians are standing up and getting their pastors and their representatives involved in faith-based diplomacy.
Okay, Josh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm here in the Knesset with Stephen Corey. Stephen, you're a Palestinian. Why are you here in the Knesset?
Well, Jesus says, "Blessed are peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God." And as a believer, as a pastor, I'm a Christian first, then my nationality, all my race. I believe in God's covenant. I believe in the 66 books of the Bible, starting from Genesis all the way to Revelations. It's God's command to be blessed. Blessed are the peacemakers. It's God's command. He has promised this land. This is the promised land. And I believe it's an honor to be part of it, regardless what part of the fence I'm living on.
So you would say as a Palestinian that God gave the land to the Jewish people?
By covenant, what I mean is God has an everlasting plan, an everlasting covenant with his creation. We see Jesus's start with his lineage of being the savior of mankind. Jesus Christ lived a Jewish life. He lived the Jewish tradition. And so for us, it's about keeping God's promises.
How do Palestinians feel about your stand?
I'm non-political. I'm a Christian. I'm a pastor. I'm a Bible believer. And my stance is very clear that the God that I serve is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. My stand is clear, is that we love all people. We love the Arabs. We love the Palestinians. We love the Jews. Like you mentioned, I'm a believer. I'm an Arab, born in Jerusalem, grew up in Bethlehem. And that's my message of love and forgiveness.
How can people around the world pray for the Israelis and for the Palestinians as well?
So how can people pray? Pray for the peace of the Jew and the Arab. Pray for the heart, the changing the heart of mankind. Pray that people start to see violence and killing isn't the answer. We need to come to the table. We need to talk about what's the future for our land. There is injustices on all sides. Any country, every race, every nationality, there's injustices. We need to grab the few that are righteous enough to say we want to build a future. We want to build a future for the better. So pray for the future of the Palestinians and the Israelis and the Jewish people. Pray for the peace of this land. Pray for hope for tomorrow.
Is it about re-educating children? Because children are the key, is it?
I agree with you. We need to bring kids down to the reality of what's good, what's bad, what's righteous, what's unrighteous. What does God say? What doesn't God? At the end of the day, it's what the Bible says for me as a believer. So we need to educate the young children on what is God's plan for mankind. It's salvation, it's hope, it's grace. That's God's plan. God says, I know the plans I have for you, just to bless you, to prosper you. Why not fall under that?
And that's a cost for the Palestinians as well. Sometimes they feel like a second-class nation, but God has a heart for the Palestinians as well, doesn't he?
God has a love for the Palestinians. God has a heart for the Palestinians. God has a future for the Palestinians. God's got a message of salvation for the Palestinian people. The same thing that we see God's promises on this side of the fence as well. We, as a religious person, I am not anti either. I'm just pro-Bible, pro-God. And God says, "Blessed are peacemakers, so they should be called the sons of God." And there is hope. We're very hopeful.
I'm with Chris Mitchell here at the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus. How important is it to be here today?
Well, I think it's very important, Paul. I mean, this has been going on for a number of years, but it really connects what's the Knesset members here with many of the Christian ministries and organizations here in Israel that represent millions of Christians around the world.
Is it a good representation?
I think it is. I mean, I think what you see here, the leaders you see here are pro-Israel. They see Israel from a biblical perspective, and in each of their own ways, they do what they can to support the Jewish state.
And do you think as well, particularly with Netanyahu, they're realizing and recognizing how good Christians support Israel, aren't they?
I think Benjamin Netanyahu is probably the one Israeli leader that understands Christian support for Israel better than most. His dad was a historian. He's been friends with the evangelical community in Israel and in the U.S. and around the world for decades. And I think he kind of gets it, and he realizes that it was Christian Zionism along with Jewish Zionism that really helped form the modern state of Israel.
Now you're a journalist and you work for CBN News. You must cover a whole load of different news stories over the years.
We have and we do, and it's a variety of stories, from stories like this at the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus to archaeology to geopolitics to politics here in Israel. There's a wide spectrum, I know you know, of here. There's so much to cover here that goes on every day that has both geopolitical significance and biblical significance.
What is the most important thing to be praying for at the moment, do you think, here in Israel?
I think right now we're praying for unity. There's a lot of division within Israel right now, particularly over judicial reform, but I think it goes beyond that. about what kind of Israel there will be. Will it be more religious, more secular? I think it's a very divisive time, and I think people need to be praying for unity, sort of like it says in Psalms when, how blessed it is when brethren dwell together in unity. It's like oil running down the beard of Aaron. I think praying for unity, I think, is a big thing to be praying for. And, by the way, there's something called Isaiah62fast.com, where millions of people believers around the world will be praying for Israel from May 7th to May 28th, based on Isaiah 62.
Why specifically that time?
Well, it's just before Pentecost, and Pentecost will be, or Shavuot will be on May 28th, and so that's where they felt like they were led by the Lord on those particular days, and certainly as well as Isaiah 62, which gives a biblical idea of what God plans for the Jewish people in the state of Israel.
Do you feel like we're living in biblical, exciting times today?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, we can see prophecy unfolding. We can see the signs of the times that Jesus talked about in Matthew 24 and Luke 21. And he said at that time, lift up your heads and look up, for your redemption draweth nigh.
I'm with Sharon Haskell, who's a member of the Knesset. What's it like for you being a member of the Knesset on Israel's 75th birthday?
Wow, I'm really proud of it, but it's also a great responsibility, especially with a lot of Israel's challenges, security challenges, international relations challenges. It is a great responsibility for our people, for my country, but I'm extremely proud of it. Israel is an absolute miracle, and my generation is the next generation to continue and lead this incredible country and incredible people.
Now, you're co-chairing on the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus. Why did you want to do that?
Wow, because I think that what Christian communities are doing for Israel is absolutely incredible. Every time I meet a true friend from a Christian community, my heart expands, because throughout history, Israelis, Jewish people didn't have many friends. And to see the extent of love and prayer and actions in defending and helping our country and our people is really overwhelming. And so it's really important for me to continue and build those bridges. First of all, to say to those communities, thank you, to host them here in the Knesset, and to see how I can help in building more bridges like that.
Is it important that we stand together to fight anti-Semitism?
Absolutely. We cannot do it alone. I mean, right now there's a bill of the European Union who's trying to label Jewish merchandise coming from Israel. This takes us, years back, in what happened in Europe. We cannot do that alone, Israel's always singled out. There is so much lies and propaganda that's being spread about Israel. It's those Christian community who come and see and experience Israel, who really understand the truth, who see that Israel is a democratic country that gives equal rights to all of its citizens, that it is a light in the Middle East. No other country in the Middle East is a strong, thriving democracy that all its citizens have liberties and rights. And when they come and they see that, they are like messengers to bring that out. And it is so difficult to combat lies and propaganda on social media and even in mainstream media a lot of the time. It is essential, those communities are essential in bringing that message.
How can Christians around the world pray for members of the Knesset?
To give us the strength to continue and fight in the name of our people, to give us the wisdom in understanding what is the best way to act in many areas, to give us strength and hope, and maybe more happy moments. We're in quite difficult times. We've experienced many terrorist attacks in recent months, particularly attacks who targeted children and families, and we had numerous families who have lost two children, brother and sister, two brothers, And these tragedies are heartbreaking. So maybe to give us that prayers for hope and to see beyond that and to give us strength to rise up again after such tragedy to those families, and for us to be able to give them the power and the energy to continue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.